The silence of the night is broken only by the whisper of wind through slightly open windows. You walk through your house, bare feet on the cool floor, when something catches your eye. There, on your living room wall, a small gecko watches you with its bright, ancient eyes. For a moment, time seems to stand still. A shiver runs down your spine, a strange feeling that something much bigger is happening. And you're right. My dear spiritual children, I am Father Elijah, and today I come to you with a revelation that may completely transform how you see the universe's signs. How many times have you encountered a gecko in your home and simply ignored it, thinking it was just a common animal seeking shelter? How many times have you overlooked one of the most powerful and mysterious messengers the cosmos can send directly to the sanctuary of your soul? The truth, my beloved, is that the presence of a gecko in your home is no coincidence. It never was. And what I am about to reveal may sound dangerous to those unprepared to receive the ancestral wisdom I share with you today. Because when we speak of spiritual danger, we don't speak of something that will harm your physical body, but rather something that can shake the deepest structures of your consciousness, forcing you to awaken to truths you may not be ready to face. In humanity's oldest traditions, long before sacred books were written, long before organized religions took shape, our ancestors knew that every creature that crossed the path of humans carried a message from the divine. Geckos, these little house dragons as they were called by the wise of old, have always been recognized as bearers of profound spiritual warnings. In early Christianity, in manuscripts deliberately hidden from ordinary believers, there are accounts of how Saint Francis of Assisi received messages through small reptiles that appeared in his cell during his prayer vigils. He wrote in his secret diaries that these creatures were angels in disguise sent to warn of approaching storms of the soul. The monk scribes of the time knew that certain truths were too dangerous to be openly shared, as they could cause panic among the spiritually unprepared. In ancient Hindu wisdom, geckos are known as Chipkali, and their appearance in the home is considered one of the most important omens a family can receive. Vedic texts speak of how these creatures are able to perceive subtle energetic shifts in the environment long before humans, acting as true spiritual detectors. When a gecko enters your home, it is fleeing something you cannot yet see, but which is approaching. Shamans of Amazonian tribes have always known that geckos are guardians of the portals between worlds. They believe that these small beings can freely walk between dimensions, and when they choose to settle in a human dwelling, it is because they have detected a rift in the veil separating the physical and spiritual worlds. This rift can be an opportunity for extraordinary growth, but it can also represent vulnerability to influences you are not prepared to face. But what makes this truly dangerous, my children, is that most people do not understand the symbolic language these messengers use. A gecko found dead in your home carries a completely different warning from one that is alive and active. One that makes sounds has an urgent message, while one that remains in absolute silence whispers secrets that only the most sensitive can perceive. Let me ask something that may deeply touch your souls. When was the last time you truly paid attention to the small signs the universe sends? When was the last time you stopped to question whether that gecko on the bedroom wall wasn't trying to tell you something about the relationship you insist on maintaining, even knowing it's draining your life force? Or about that job that seems to be consuming not only your time, but your very essence? Because see, my dears, the real danger is not in the message itself, but in our resistance to hearing it. When we ignore these spiritual warnings, when we close our hearts to the subtle language of the cosmos, we are choosing to remain asleep in situations that may be causing us invisible but profound harm. The location where the gecko appears in your home reveals specific layers of meaning that ancient spiritual masters decoded with surgical precision. A gecko in the living room indicates that the social masks you wear daily are becoming too heavy for your soul to carry. It's a warning that you are living a life that doesn't reflect your true essence and that it's time to start showing yourself authentically to the world. When it appears in the bedroom, the most intimate sanctuary of your life, the message directly touches the deepest aspects of your emotional and spiritual existence. It may be a warning about intimate relationships that are blocking your growth, or about thought patterns you maintain before sleep that are programming your subconscious with limitations. A gecko in the kitchen speaks of nourishment in every sense, not only physical but emotional and spiritual. It silently asks, "What are you feeding your soul?" Perhaps it's time to reassess not only what you eat, but what kind of information, what kind of relationships, what kind of thoughts you are consuming daily. In the bathroom, a place of purification and release, its presence indicates that there is something in your life that needs to be cleansed, released, left behind. It could be a toxic emotion you've been carrying for years, a resentment that's poisoning your heart, or patterns of behavior that no longer serve your growth. And here, my beloved, I need to pause our journey to share something important. If this message is resonating with you, if you feel these words are awakening something dormant within, I invite you to join our spiritual family. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell, because this is just a small taste of the ancestral wisdom I share regularly. Together, we can create a community of awakened souls ready to decipher the mysteries the universe places in our path. Your presence here is no coincidence, and your spiritual journey deserves to be cultivated with dedication and love. But let's continue our exploration, because there's much more to discover about these tiny yet powerful messengers. The gecko's behavior also carries specific meanings that the wise of old interpreted as pages from a sacred book written by nature itself. A gecko moving quickly through the house indicates urgency in the spiritual message. It's as if the universe is shouting, "Wake up, pay attention, something important is happening in your life, and you need to act now." It could be an opportunity about to pass, a situation needing your immediate intervention, or a decision that can no longer be postponed. On the other hand, a gecko remaining motionless for long periods is asking you to practice the art of stillness, of deep contemplation. It whispers, "Stop, breathe, observe." The answer you seek will not come through frantic action, but through sacred silence. It's an invitation to meditate on your current situation and allow inner wisdom to emerge naturally. When the gecko makes sounds, especially at night, ancient mystics interpreted this as a direct call from the soul. It was considered one of the most sacred signs one could receive. The sound of the night gecko was seen as the voice of ancestors trying to communicate, warning of significant changes to come or offering guidance for important decisions. There's a story told to me by a woman named Mary from a small town in the American South that perfectly exemplifies the power of this spiritual communication. She was going through a very difficult time in her 20-year marriage. Every night, for 3 consecutive weeks, a gecko appeared on the wall of her bedroom and stayed directly above the bed, motionless, as if watching and protecting. Mary initially tried to ignore it, but the creature's constant presence began to bother her in a way she couldn't explain. One night, she decided to talk to the gecko, feeling a little foolish but following a heart impulse. She asked, "What are you trying to tell me?" At that moment, the gecko came down from the wall and slowly walked to the dresser drawer where Mary kept her husband's old letters. It was then that she decided to open that drawer for the first time in years and found letters revealing a months-long affair. The gecko had appeared to prepare her for this discovery, to strengthen her spiritually before the emotional impact that was to come. Mary told me that, strangely, when she found the letters, she felt no anger or despair. She felt a deep peace, as if she finally had the answer to a question her soul had been asking for months. The gecko disappeared that same night, its mission accomplished. Mary made the necessary decisions for her life with clarity and serenity, ending the marriage with dignity and starting a new chapter of her existence. Another case that deeply impacted me was that of John, a businessman from a major city who was about to sign a contract that would represent the expansion of his business, but would also substantially indebt him. On the morning he was going to sign the documents, he found a dead gecko right on top of the contract papers, on his desk. John told me he felt an inexplicable chill, as if something was trying to warn him. He decided to postpone the signing for a week and use that time to examine the proposal more thoroughly. It was then that he discovered that the company he was going to partner with was experiencing serious financial problems that had been deliberately hidden. The gecko, even in death, had saved John from a financial ruin that could have destroyed decades of hard work. These testimonies show us that the real danger is not in geckos or their messages, but in our refusal to listen to the wisdom the universe constantly offers us. When we close our hearts to these signs, when we decide we are too smart or too modern to believe in the symbolic language of nature, we are depriving ourselves of a source of guidance that our ancestors considered essential for a full and conscious life. But how can we properly connect with these messages? How can we open ourselves to receive the guidance these little spiritual masters offer us? First, it's essential to develop what the ancients called eyes of the soul, the ability to see beyond superficial appearances and perceive the deeper patterns that govern our existence. When you find a gecko in your home, don't rush to remove or ignore it. Stop, breathe deeply. Observe not only the creature, but also observe yourself. What emotions arise? What thoughts cross your mind? What sensations do you feel in your body? Ask yourself, what aspect of my life needs attention at this moment? What decision have I been avoiding making? What truth have I been resisting seeing? The answers may not come immediately, but if you keep your heart open and your mind receptive, the guidance will arrive in ways that may surprise you. There is a sacred ritual that Mayan shamans used when they received a visit from a gecko. It was called the Sacred Recognition Ritual, and I would like to share it with you, adapted for modern times, but maintaining its deep spiritual essence. When you find a gecko in your home, light a white candle and place it in a place where you can comfortably sit and observe the creature without disturbing it. Close your eyes and breathe deeply 3 times, clearing your mind of everyday worries. So, open your eyes and observe the gecko with reverence, as if you were before a spiritual master, because that is exactly what it is. Mentally or in a low voice, say, "Little Master, I acknowledge your sacred presence in my home. I recognize that you are not here by chance, but as a messenger of the divine. I open my heart to receive the guidance you bring. May your wisdom illuminate the dark corners of my soul and guide me on the path of my highest good." Then remain in contemplative silence for a few minutes, simply observing and allowing any insight or intuition to emerge naturally. Don't force thoughts or seek immediate answers. Trust that the message will arrive at the moment and in the appropriate way. When you feel the moment has come to an end, give thanks. Thank you, little master, for your presence and for your message. May you find peace and protection, and may your sacred mission be fulfilled with love. If the gecko is still present, you can gently help it find its way out, but do so with care and respect, never with haste or aggression. Finalize the ritual by extinguishing the candle and spending a few moments reflecting on the experience. Write in a spiritual journal any insights, sensations, or intuitions that have arisen. Often, the full meaning of the message only becomes clear days or weeks later, when you look back and notice how things unfolded. But there is something even deeper that I need to share about the dangerous aspect of the gecko's presence. The real danger isn't in the message they bring, but in the transformation that message can trigger in your life. When you truly open yourself to hear the whispers of the universe, when you allow these little masters to touch your heart, you are initiating an awakening process that cannot be reversed. It's like taking the red pill in the movie The Matrix. Once you see the reality behind appearances, once you understand that there is a web of meaning connecting all the experiences of your life, you can no longer pretend you don't know. You can no longer live on autopilot, ignoring the signs, making unconscious choices. This is the real reason I say that few are prepared for this wisdom.
Because it demands courage. It requires you to take full responsibility for your spiritual life. It demands that you stop playing the victim of circumstances and recognize that you are an active co-creator of your reality. When you begin to pay attention to the signs, whether they are geckos, repetitive numbers, meaningful dreams, or impossible coincidences, you are assuming the role of a true spiritual seeker, and that changes everything. It changes how you see your relationships, your work, your challenges, your opportunities. It changes how you relate to yourself and to the divine. Some people, when they begin to awaken to this reality, feel fear. Fear of the responsibility that comes with expanded consciousness. Fear of the changes that may be necessary. Fear of discovering that the life they have built up until then does not reflect who they truly are. But let me assure you, my dear spiritual children, this fear is natural and temporary. It is just the ego resisting transformation. Behind the fear is a freedom you cannot imagine being possible. The freedom to live in alignment with your deepest truth. The freedom to make decisions based on the wisdom of the soul, not just the logic of the mind. The freedom to feel truly connected with the magical flow of existence. Geckos teach us about adaptability, about the ability to move between different environments with grace and naturalness. They can walk on walls, defying gravity, symbolizing our capacity to transcend the limitations we believe we have. They can regenerate parts of their body that have been lost, reminding us of our own power of healing and renewal. When a gecko sheds its tail to escape a predator, it teaches us about sacred detachment, the wisdom of letting go of what is not essential to preserve what is vital. How many times in our lives do we need to learn this lesson? How many times do we cling to relationships, jobs, possessions, or even ideas about ourselves that no longer serve our growth? The gecko's ability to remain motionless for long periods, conserving energy, teaches us about the importance of moments of quietude in our fast-paced lives. In a society that glorifies constant activity, these little masters remind us that there is also wisdom in the pause, in contemplation, in sacred waiting. Their eyes, which can move independently of each other, symbolize the need to develop multiple perspectives on life situations. When we face challenges, there is rarely only one way to see things. The gecko invites us to expand our vision, to seek different angles, to question our assumptions. And there is something even more fascinating. Geckos are predominantly nocturnal creatures, active during the period when most of us are asleep. This symbolizes their connection with the dream world, with the unconscious, with the truths that only emerge when the conscious mind relaxes its constant vigilance. When a gecko appears in your home, it may be signaling that it is time to pay more attention to your dreams, your intuitions, the whispers of your inner wisdom that are often muffled by the noise of daily life. Do you remember the biblical story of Daniel in the lion's den? Mystic interpreters have always known that this story was not only literal but also symbolic. Daniel represented the human soul that needs to learn to coexist peacefully with the wild aspects of its own nature. The lions were the instincts, the fears, the untamed passions. Similarly, when a gecko, a small domestic dragon, enters our home, it may be inviting us to make peace with aspects of ourselves that we have rejected or feared. Perhaps it's our sensitivity, our intuition, our need for solitude, our unexpressed creativity. The esoteric Christian tradition, that which was preserved in remote monasteries and passed down only to the most prepared initiates, has always recognized that God speaks through all of his creatures. St. Francis didn't converse with the birds merely out of sentimentality, but because he understood that each living being carries a spark of divine wisdom. When a gecko crosses our path, when it chooses our home as a temporary sanctuary, it is fulfilling a sacred mission. It is serving as an ambassador of the natural kingdom, reminding us that we are part of a much larger web of existence, that we are neither isolated nor abandoned in this universe. But to receive this grace, to benefit from this celestial guidance disguised as a common little creature, we need to cultivate what the mystics called a childlike heart. That natural openness to mystery, that willingness to marvel at the seemingly simple. Our children still possess this instinctive wisdom. When a child sees a gecko, they rarely react with indifference. There's fascination, curiosity, a natural sense that something special is happening. We adults, with our excessive rationality, often lose this ability to recognize the sacred in the everyday. Reclaiming this sensitivity doesn't mean abandoning our intelligence or our capacity for discernment. It means expanding our definition of intelligence to include the wisdom of the heart, emotional intelligence, the intuitive perception that our ancestors considered as important as logical reasoning. And here we arrive at the crucial point of our journey today, my beloved. The real danger of geckos isn't in the messages they bring, but in the possibility of ignoring those messages and remaining asleep to the wealth of guidance the universe constantly offers us. Imagine if you knew you had a wise and loving counselor always available, someone who perfectly knows your situation and is constantly sending subtle guidance to help you navigate life with more wisdom and less suffering. This counselor exists. It is the very intelligence of the universe expressing itself through 1,000 different forms, including little geckos that appear at the exact moment we need a specific message. The tragedy isn't that these messages are dangerous. The tragedy is that so many people spend their entire lives without ever learning the language through which the cosmos whispers its secrets. It's like having access to an infinite library of wisdom but never learning to read. Therefore, I invite you, with all the love in my heart, to consider this possibility. What if the next gecko that appears in your house brings exactly the guidance you need to resolve that situation that has been worrying you? What if it appears precisely to prepare you for an incredible opportunity that is approaching? What if its silent presence is a gentle reminder that you are not alone on this journey? The universe never stops talking to us.
It speaks through dreams, through coincidences, through the people who cross our path at the right moment, through the books that fall into our hands when we most need their messages, and yes, through small creatures that choose our home as a temporary sanctuary. Every moment of our lives is imbued with meaning. Every experience carries the potential for growth and revelation. But to access this richness, we need to develop eyes to see and ears to hear. We need to cultivate the humility to recognize that there are forms of knowledge that transcend our rational understanding. This doesn't mean abandoning our critical sense or believing anything without discernment. It means expanding our receptivity, our ability to perceive subtle patterns, our willingness to consider that perhaps the universe is far more intelligent and loving than our limited minds can comprehend. When we begin to live this way, when we genuinely open ourselves to the symbolic language of existence, our lives transform into a constant spiritual adventure. Each day becomes an opportunity for discovery. Each challenge reveals itself as an opportunity for growth. Each apparent problem shows itself as an invitation to expand our wisdom and our compassion. Geckos, with their discreet but significant presence, invite us to this more awakened, more conscious life, more connected to the sacred flow of existence. They remind us that we don't need grand, dramatic revelations to access divine guidance. Often, it comes whispered through the smallest details of our daily lives. My dear spiritual children, as we reach the end of this journey of discovery, I want to leave you with a truth that can completely transform your relationship with life. You are not victims of circumstances. You are not lost in an indifferent universe. You are not alone. You are spiritual beings having a human experience, participating in a cosmic dance of growth and evolution. Every experience, every challenge, every moment of joy or sorrow, every little creature that crosses your path, it all forms part of an intricate and beautiful tapestry that is being woven with threads of love, wisdom, and purpose. The next time you find a gecko in your house, remember this conversation. Pause for a moment. Breathe deeply. Look at that little messenger with reverence and gratitude. Open your hearts to the possibility that it may be carrying exactly the guidance you need at this moment in your lives. And if this message touched something deep within you, if you felt that these words awakened an ancient memory of the soul, I invite you to join our ongoing spiritual journey. Share your experiences in the comments. Tell us about the signs you have been receiving.
Let us know how these revelations are impacting your life. Because in the end, my beloved, nothing is coincidence. You came this far, you listened to this message, you felt something stir within your hearts. All of this is part of your soul's awakening. The universe is calling you to a more conscious, connected life, full of purpose and meaning. Geckos are just one of the many ways this call reaches you. Respond with courage, openness, and the confidence that you are deeply loved and constantly guided by an intelligence that transcends all human understanding. May the wisdom of these little teachers illuminate your path. May their presence in your homes always be recognized as the blessing it truly is, and may you never again feel alone on this sacred journey we call life. Until our next encounter, keep your hearts open, your eyes attentive to the signs, and your souls receptive to the loving whispers of the universe. Your awakening is my joy, and your spiritual journey is my constant prayer. With all my love and blessings, Father Elijah.